And welcome to the penultimate production of Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizers. Still going. Matt Money Smith here, joined by the driving force behind the show, the old Zeuser, Dan Hanzus, who has taken time away from his burgeoning Etsy business, clever but considerate coffee mugs, to be here with us today. Thanks, Dan. We appreciate it.
You have to have multiple revenue streams, Money. And you mentioned penultimate episode. Like with Prestige Television, there always is the big episode where crazy things happen. It's not the finale. It's the second to last episode. That's how I feel like this show is going to play out. Just something bonkers is going to happen by the end of this.
Well, to borrow a term from legendary Orange County punk rock band, the Aquabats, that's get to your Super Bowl storylines that are super rad, because this is the penultimate. And you know what? We're going to go to break real quick. Technical difficulties. We'll be right back. Let us iron those things out, and we'll get right back at it. And we welcome you to the penultimate production of Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizers. Still going. Matt Money Smith here, joined by the driving force behind our show, the old Zeuser, Dan Hanzus, who is taking time away from his public speaking tour, Goose Your Troops, with Dan Hanzus, to be here with us. Thank you, Dan. We appreciate it.
You're welcome, and we do practice social distancing, but still getting pretty good crowds considering the circumstances.
Right.
Money, you mentioned this is the penultimate episode, and when you think about Prestige Television, it's always that penultimate episode, the second to last show, that has everyone talking the next morning around the water coolers. That's what's going to happen on the second to last episode of the Power Rankings this season. This one's going to get weird.
All right, well, let's get weird then. Let's go with some super rad Dan Super Bowl storylines ranked, because we got to rank something, and it's a little weird to rank just two teams. So let's go through some storylines you're keeping an eye on for February 7th at Super Bowl 55.
All right, let's do reverse order. Oh, you got me.
Gotcha.
Number 3, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, going up against Tom Brady, and that's happened before. It happened way back in February 2008. When the New England Patriots were 18-0 and staring down immortality, and Spags and that great front seven of the New York Giants came together on a game plan that really messed up and threw goo into the gears of that amazing Randy Moss, Tom Brady offense and scored one of the great upsets in NFL history. Spags now has another chance to mess up Tom Brady all these years later. Love this one.
Not nearly celebrated enough. The gig defense, goo and gears defense of Steve Spagnuolo that prevented a perfect season and the champagne to continue to be popped. I'll say, you tip of the cap, because when we were ranking defenses, we talked about personnel and on paper what this Chiefs defense looked like. It's humming, man. It has come to life in the right moments, and that is in the playoffs. Frank Clark with those couple of sacks regularly brought pressure. Josh Allen was trying to fend it off. And it just seemed like Spags was a step ahead of what had been a really, really good offense. Now, granted, Baltimore had done that to them the week before, but a team that really had only lost the game on that Hail Murray and had been playing pretty darn well. And boy, he certainly looked to have the upper hand in that one.
Absolutely. All right. Number two. Playmakers paradise. I mean, look at I'm just going to name them off. Tyreek, Travis Kelce.
Okay.
Sammy Watkins, if he's playing. Mecole Hardman. Mike Evans.
More names.
Curtis Godwin. Antonio Brown. Gronk.
That's quite
Chris
the name
Godwin,
salad.
by the way.
Yes, not Curtis.
Think about it. Think about all these players. All have chances to make big impacts. These are star-level players, and we've seen it through the playoffs. All these guys have made big plays, even Gronk at this advanced stage. So you look at the two quarterbacks, obviously with Mahomes and Brady, and they're both special, and they're both Hall of Famers, but their ability to have these players to go to is what makes these teams go. You need the playmakers around the quarterback, and both these teams have them.
When you said playmakers and then you mentioned the name Curtis, immediately my mind's eye went to the greatest Hawthorne High School football player of all time, Curtis Conway, one of the great athletes to ever play in this fine city of ours. But you mentioned Chris Godwin. Look, you know what this is? This is the you better be playing to score touchdowns Super Bowl. And it's what we want. We love offense. It's become an offensive league the last couple of years. Yeah, I know about the Rams and the Patriots Super Bowl and how defense dominated that particular outfit. And yes, defense has dominated a portion of these playoffs. But man, these two teams, you just get the sense that it is going to be an offensive heavyweight fight with two great play callers, by the way, in addition to all those great players, Bruce Arians and the Risk It Biscuit offense versus perhaps the greatest play caller of his generation, Andy Reid. Just I gotta believe it's gonna go north of 30 on each side of the football.
Right, and I didn't even mention LaShawn McCoy, who's not a big part of what the Chiefs do. Le'Veon Bell, or the Bucs, I should say. Le'Veon Bell. There's just a lot of big name talent in this game. Number one already. And this is one that's out there already, but you can't deny it. Is this the pass the torch game? You have the stubborn GOAT, Tom Brady, who refuses to go quietly into that good night and is back in the Super Bowl for the 10th year. And then Patrick Mahomes, the great Mahomes, who is coming off another MVP-level season. You have to go back to Brett Favre in the mid-'90s to find a quarterback that has had a run at this level of greatness from both personal accolades and team standpoint. Pretty unbelievable what he's done. So you think about it, and I'm going to use kind of a dated pop culture reference here, Money, but I think there will be a portion of the audience that gets it. Way back in WrestleMania 3, when it was Hogan against Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant, he was Tom Brady, and he had to pass the torch to Hulk Hogan and the body slam her around the world at the Silverdome. Maybe that's what happens here, a body slam, metaphor.
Well, I think one torch has already been passed, right? And that is that, we would always say, well, Brady's the GOAT, but Aaron Rodgers is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen play the position. I don't think that's any longer the case. I think Patrick Mahomes is now the most talented player we've ever seen, even in his young career. Is that fair to Rodgers? No, but it's not about putting pelts on the wall. It's about how talented are you with our two eyeballs when we watch the screen. And I think Mahomes has passed him in that category. Now, will he ever get to Brady's level? Don't know. That's gonna be something that's gonna be sorted out over the next 15 years, and longevity is gonna be a big part of that. But one thing is for certain: these two guys win when they're supposed to win. And we talked about, well, maybe they're gonna flick the switch. Yeah, they did. They were bored. It was clear they were bored in the regular season. And after back-to-back 100 yards apiece from Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce in the playoffs, and Patrick Mahomes lighting it up and just laying waste to the Buffalo Bills, I don't think there's any question the potential is there. And you know what? Just quickly to even make a long answer longer, Dan, It's going to depend on the division, right? If this is going to be a passing of the torch, the AFC West is going to have to resemble the misery that was the AFC East surrounding the Patriots for all those years when they were able to dominate the division. And I'm not quite sure, whether or not that's going to shake out. All right, let's go to some obits, and we kind of have our last words and thoughts for the Buffalo Bills, Dan.
Disappointing end to their season, obviously, and I know on this show we kind of fell in love with the Bills down the stretch, and they looked like a team that was going to be able to go punch for punch with the Chiefs. It didn't turn out that way. When push came to shove and you were on that big stage, the Bills blinked a little bit. Josh Allen wasn't as sharp, and that was kind of a trend throughout the playoffs for Buffalo. The offense just wasn't there, and the defense just had no answers for the Kansas City offense, which was playing the rope-a-dope game like we all suspected all season long, just waiting for that moment. So no shame for the Bills. You wish money they were a little more aggressive going for it in the red zone, knowing that they were not going to be able to stop the Kansas City offense, but ultimately it just felt like the better team took care of business.
That, to me, there's two keys to this one, right? One, Stephon Diggs and the ability of Steve Spagnuolo to take him away and neutralize him for a great majority. For the entire first half, and then really for the majority of the second half. Constantly had two guys on Diggs and said, you're not going to beat us with him. And then also creatively sending pressure at Josh Allen. And a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, but sort of the book on Allen this season was, hey, rush with 4 and force him to pass into tight windows. He chose not to do that. Selective with his blitz, dropping guys into coverage, adding other guys, rushing from different spots. I thought that was a great move. And then you said it, I'm going to echo your sentiment. Sean McDermott, just a big letdown. You cannot kick field goals when you got 4th and goal from inside the 5 on 2 separate occasions. You just can't do it. You got to know better than that against this team. You have got to trade touchdowns, and you're better off just pinning them deep in their own end and forcing them to go to the length of the field than taking the 3 and giving them a little bit less field to work with.
They kicked a 20-yard field goal and a 27-yard field goal.
You can't do that.
It just
you
can't
not
do it.
acceptable.
It's common sense.
Let's go to Green Bay. Obit on Green Bay, Dan.
Yeah, and it's weird. There is some connective tissue here, of course, because Matt LaFleur, when given the choice to trust his MVP quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, on 4th and goal from the 8-yard line, and trust his defense to get a stop of Tom Brady to get the ball back, he went with his defense, and he's going to live with that, I think. I don't imagine he slept a lot so far this week because that was a decision that will live on in infamy for the Green Bay Packers. And, from a standpoint as a football fan, I think about it, money, as like, waited for that classic game this whole playoffs, and it had never materialized. And then it was staring us right in the face, 31-23, 4th and goal for Aaron Rodgers. And to take him off the field, oh, man, if you're a Packers fan, you are just beside yourself still thinking about how that decision could be made in that spot, because as good as the Green Bay defense was in allowing them to climb back from 28-10, it still did get to 28-10 in the first place, and Tom Brady is Tom Brady. Hate the decision, and I'm not breaking news here, but it's hard to avoid it.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple things. One, I feel like Aaron Rodgers is getting let off the hook. There's a couple plays there. One, in the first half, he flat out missed Davante Adams. Would have been a touchdown. They settled for a field goal. 2, they get 3 interceptions back to back to back. And here's that play. He's wide open. Just throws it late and flat out misses him. You had multiple opportunities with that 1st and goal. Missed Davante here. Threw it a little bit late. And then, Wayne Larrivee called it. Why aren't you running with the ball? And to him, for Aaron to go into the post-game presser and talk about, I didn't know what Matty wanted to do there. I would have called a different play. Different play, give him something to choose. Don't have 4th and goal from the
Touchdown, Mike Evans.
Touchdown, MVS.
To the 5, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Buccaneers. Picked off by Sean Murphy-Bunting. Scotty Scooter Miller. And Brady puts it right on the spot. A fumble football. Scooped up by the Buccaneers. It's Devin White. One play for Brady to do his thing. Touchdown.
With that stop, the field goal try now by Crosby.
Really surprised by that decision.
Godwin robs for the first down. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be the first team ever to host a Super Bowl.
Hartman standing at his 11-yard line.
Drops it, muffs it. Taiwan Jones comes up with it at the 2-yard line. Touchdown, Buffalo. Dots and knots. Touchdown!
The Jet on a short flight. The Chiefs have 3 touchdowns. A new wrinkle to Kelsey. It's picked off by Fenton. Kelsey wide open, and it's human pyrotechnics. Yes, the Chiefs are back-to-back AFC champions.
Well, he is the slinger of snark, the getter of goads, a driving force behind the Around the NFL podcast. Greg Rosenthal now joins Power Rankings to offer up, I think, appreciation for another Brady Super Bowl appearance. Thank you, Greg. And I'll start with, as someone who certainly can recollect all of them, if he wins, will this be Brady's greatest triumph? Will this be the most impressive title of them all?
No, I don't think so. Well, how can you separate like the end of his career? To me, the last 6 years are kind of one chunk where it's the most impressive that no quarterback's ever done that. That's like what Brady is stacking them one on top of another. But this has to be sweet. Like Joe Montana is his idol. And I was thinking about that on championship weekend, how Montana did get to that one championship game with the Chiefs. And now Brady's topped Montana again. It's like putting him in a new place. You get to see him in a different way. It's like seeing Hansis in the analyst chair here on Power Ranking. Sometimes, you got skill you didn't even know was there.
Yeah, there it is.
I don't know how is Greg on this show, by the way, right now. I need a little bit of separation. The ATN podcast is great, but
Worlds collide.
Good job by the booking team overall. How about this, Greg? You always push back against my theory about Bill Belichick being grumpy about this Tom Brady run. But going back
to all you have.
Yeah, going back to Money's original question, I would think for him, maybe the Patriots didn't kick him out the door, but they decided to move on without him, just like he decided to move on. I think for him, it might be the most fulfilling for that reason alone, that this was supposed to be the beginning of the end. It was supposed to be his Joe Montana. Oh, maybe you get in the playoffs and make a nice run, but you're never going to be a Super Bowl winner again. If he won this, I think it would be the most rewarding for him.
I think you're right, actually. Now that you made me think of it. Because I think the last one is always the most satisfying. I thought the 6th one was next level. It's funny, people like you, Dan, trying to diminish it. It's like, oh, they scored 13 points in that Super Bowl. Hey, how about the week before where he outdueled Patrick Mahomes, the league MVP in overtime? How about the week before that, before he dropped a 40-burger on Money's Chargers? So he was still playing at a high level then, and I think, I never thought he could get that 6th. So I think you're right. If he did it with another team, it separates him in a way that is going to matter.
Money, do you hear that kind of attacking tone from Greg?
Yeah,
that's what I deal with 3 times a week on the Around the NFL podcast.
You know what? He is all gas, no break. That's what Greg is and always has been.
Exactly. He bites kneecaps too.
We believe he had choices. We don't know. Some say it was maybe the Chargers and the Bucs, and those were the only 2. Others say he really wanted to go to San Francisco. Maybe had Breeze retired, New Orleans was his number 1 spot. What made the Bucs the right choice? And do you think he could have done this with any of those other teams I just mentioned?
The Saints would have been fascinating. I know there's a lot of Saints fans that believe that conspiracy theory that Breeze was ready to retire, but when he heard win that Brady might be joining up with Sean Payton, he's like, I'm not letting him win with the Saints. Yeah. I think the Bucs were perfect because they are a complete team. The defense has been up and down, but they really helped win that Saints game, and they were at least even par with Brady in terms of winning that Packers game. The offensive line is good. The weapons are obviously great. There's comfort with the front office that you can bring in Gronk and bring in Antonio Brown whenever you feel like it. I don't know if he had options. I really don't know where else he was going to go. I think the Raiders were the only team where you got a feel from ownership that maybe they could have made that happen, and he preferred the Bucs. And once again, always making the right decision. That's Tom Brady.
He always has, and I think we're going to need some perspective and some time fully grasp what's going on here. I, for one, I was saying years ago he was ready to go into a decline, and here he is in his age 43 season. 3 or 4 years ago when he said, I want to play till I'm 45, people were like, all right, Tom, that's cute. And now it's like, geez, can he play till he's 50? I think it's one of the great sports stories, the superstar that is taking out Father Time. It's got to be fun to watch, and maybe a little bittersweet as a Patriots fan, Greg.
A little, but I really didn't want to see him go 9-7 with this Patriots team. That, like last year, people acted like Tom Brady was the worst player of all time. They went 12-4. I mean, that would have been the best season in a decade for half the NFL, and that's the viewpoint. And they weren't going to win with this Patriots team, so I like seeing it now. But you're right; he's guaranteed money into next year. And you do start thinking, like, is he going to ask for more guaranteed money after that? Because he's playing better right now than he has in a few years.
Now, he did throw 3 picks, and the Packers were unable to do anything with 2 of them because of that defense and perhaps because of the decision-making of Aaron Rodgers on those 2 particular drives. But do you see this Bucs defense and what they've shown you against these 3 teams so far in the playoffs? Can they be the one bunch that figures out and can crack the code of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce?
Probably not. Yeah. I mean, I think back to like that first play when they played the Bucs last time, and I think it was Sean Murphy bunting, in coverage, and they're just not ready for Tyreek Hill's speed. I always wondered, like, what's going to happen if they treat Tyreek Hill as a true number 1 receiver, like a Stephon Diggs that you just throw the ball to him 12 times a game. We found out the last 2 months, really, and he's just killing you. And then you have Travis Kelce, who's going to beat your number 1 cornerback. I think they just got to send pressure at Mahomes, and they got to hope they win up front and get rid of the ball quickly, and maybe hope Mahomes doesn't look quite as healthy and make a move more than they did last time around, because his legs have been such a big factor for him.
Well, we each got subtle jabs, so thanks for that, Greg, and I'm sure you'll continue with your backhanded insults, not even compliments, on the Around the NFL podcast as the front-handed insults as the Around the NFL podcast. We'll certainly make a number of appearances throughout the course of the next 2 weeks, making our way to Super Bowl 55. We appreciate it, Greg. And when we return, he regularly regales all and every of Aaron Rodgers' exploits. The Cal connection is strong with those two, so Mike Silver pops on Power Rankings to decode the post-loss presser in Green Bay next.
Here's the snap. Steps up, scrambles, throws late, over the middle, incomplete. My goodness. Aaron could have almost, it looked like he could have run for the touchdown. Wow. Now they get motion, and here's the toss around the right end. It is Godwin, makes the turn, slides to a stop with a first down, and that's the ball game. A toss to Godwin on an end around, and that will do it. That's the ball game.
Indeed, that was the ball game, and he'll tell you it goes to show you don't ever know. Watch each card you play and play it slow. His appreciation for Oski is acknowledged in these parts. His column is up at NFL.com/Silver. It's Mike Silver to talk about Aaron Rodgers. You know Aaron well, Mike. You've had a relationship with him for decades, it seems like. What did you make of his post-game presser, and do you think he had to do that publicly?
Well, Matt, Aaron's the guy who chooses his words very carefully, so I think it's a combination that he was certainly grieving and, after a long season, decompressing in that moment. But, he's very, very, he considers each word that he utters. And so, to me, I believe he was sending his bosses a message. And did he have to do it publicly? I think maybe, because let's go back to last offseason. They had been uncharacteristically aggressive the year before with great results, getting Za'Darius and Preston Smith and Billy Turner and Adrian Amos and really infusing that team with some talent. And then they got passive last year in free agency. The one time they were aggressive, they traded up in the first round of the draft and drafted his successor. So, that was public, and he sat with that and managed to get into a good place and play transcendent football, for the regular season and really played at a pretty high level in that game against Tampa Bay, and it wasn't enough. And so I think the message distilled was this: hey, look, the Bucs loaded up with Tom Brady. They went and got everyone they could, and that's not just a tangible thing, it's a mentality. We did the usual Packer thing of like, hey, we'll just go with what we got, and we'll be passive, and hopefully Aaron will bail us out, and it'll be awesome. And it wasn't enough. So I think if you're Aaron, you're saying, are we maybe going after it and trying to maximize what's left of my window here, or are you already looking ahead to the Jordan Love era and moving on in your mind, in which case maybe I should go somewhere now where they have that mentality?
It's funny, Mike, because when I watched the press conference, what it felt like to me was he was being straightforward. He doesn't have a clear idea of his future because Jordan Love is in the building on a rookie contract and what that does for a team and how important it is to kind of get the young guy in the field during that time. So from that standpoint, his future is uncertain. So I saw it less as a shot across the bow of the organization, hey, straighten up, and more just from a practical standpoint. The rookie's right behind me. I was once that guy, and the old guy in front of me got shipped out of town.
Yeah, it's a great point, Dan. And listen, because I'm old, I've covered so much quarterback drama, and I laugh when people who are newer to it freak out sometimes. I mean, Montana and Young, years of that daily I saw, and it was not easy. Favre and Rodgers, people know that was a rough transition. And, it's usually not a comfortable situation when you have an established older player and then any young player who's eager behind him. By those standards, this is proceeding well. But only twice have you had the miracle of first ballot Hall of Famer transition to another first ballot Hall of Famer. It happened with Montana and Young, and it's going to happen with Favre and Rodgers. The thought that you would do that again, let alone seamlessly at the same franchise, that's asking a lot. That said, Jordan Love does have a lot of potential. I understand why an organization would decide to make that move. I just, the opportunity cost was steep, especially when, again, the mentality. It's the one time they did something aggressive was, hey, we're going to go get this guy. But in a receiver-rich draft at a time when there are people out there that certainly, you could have loaded up and gathered as you prepare possibly for the final stage of Aaron Rodgers' time in Green Bay, and they didn't do it. The Bucs, it was like, we want Gronk, we want Antonio Brown, we want Shady, we want Fournette, we're drafting a tackle, let's go. And that takes a psychic burden off the quarterback too. And I'm not saying this is directly tangible, but Tom Brady, after an incredible first half, threw 3 interceptions in a row or on consecutive series. The last Brady interception was probably the most arrogant pass I have ever seen him throw, and he felt empowered to do that and got away with it because he knew that he had an organization that was all in on winning this season. And I just think it's hard enough to play franchise quarterback when you have that psychic burden relieved a little bit. That counts for something.
Yeah, it's interesting because you think about halfway through the season and people, I don't want to say attacking, but kind of questioning Bruce Arians' approach with Tom Brady and how he called him out and saying Tom missed guys. And you mentioned that last interception. I mean, Aaron Rodgers missed St. Brown streaking across the field. It would have gone probably for 30, 40 yards. He missed Devontae Adams on that quick out that they settled for a field goal. In your experience, you mentioned his intelligence. Sometimes you can be afraid, especially if you're a first-time head coach in just his second year, to take on Aaron Rodgers, A, the talent, B, the legend, and C, the intelligence. Do you think people need to hold him more accountable? Because he had far from a perfect game in that contest.
Yeah, he definitely didn't have a perfect game, but I don't think it's I don't think Matt's not coaching him. They seem to have a really good meeting of the minds in year 2. The real tension is that Matt comes from that Kyle Shanahan system where they really want the quarterback to do what the coaches essentially map out and tell them, and they believe there will be answers. And Aaron is someone who is so good at the line of scrimmage, so good at diagnosing, and he obviously wanted to retain that power. But the trust really increased. They had a great offseason, and, look, you saw it this season. I mean, 48 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. That's striking, even with all of Aaron Rodgers' prodigious talent. So they were playing at a very high level. And no, he wasn't perfect in this game, but he was pretty darn good. So, look, I think the Arians-Brady thing, as I said at the time, and I've stood by, trust me, you would much rather have a coach who, maybe says something publicly that seems to criticize you than the garbage Tom Brady put up with internally for years and years and years and years. And I would just like to say this, since you gave me the opening. We've heard so much for 2 decades about the Patriot way and the culture and what Bill Belichick instills. I think we're seeing now that a large part of that culture and that Patriot way relocated south. And, what Tom Brady has done culturally for the Buccaneers is palpable.
Well, you can dig considerably deeper. A great column posted at NFL.com/silver. We know him, writer, and we will miss him when he's gone, as our segment has come to a conclusion. Mike, we appreciate it. When we return, we celebrate individual accomplishments. MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year. We'll debate who deserves the hardware next.
It's a major award.
Flips his hips, flips it downfield. Wide. It is caught. Touchdown, Green Bay. Touchdown, Kansas City.
Play fake to Moss, taking himself, and he's in.
Pumping Rodgers, running, and he's in. Touchdown, Green Bay.
Hey, why not? Let's get crazy, man.
Ooh.
Let's lean.
Hey, penultimate
Right?
episode, bro.
You like that? Things get nuts. We're doing individual
there
awards.
It is. We promised it. There it was.
We did, and there it is, right? Here, I'll even get my Matt Patricia on. There you go. How you like that?
Well, we know how that ended up.
Whatever. Let's talk MVP. Individual awards is what we're talking about here. And when it comes to MVP ballots, Dan, I would assume ours look a whole heck of a lot like just about everybody that actually has a vote, and that is these three players with Aaron Rodgers atop in some sort of order.
And the way this works is with the voting, I would guess Aaron Rodgers is going to be unanimous as well. So This is kind of a no-brainer. It was probably close in about week 15 or so between Mahomes and Rodgers, and then Rodgers closed strong. Mahomes took week 17 off, and that was it. So congratulations to Aaron Rodgers. That's 3 for him.
Yeah. And instead of debating, why you had Mahomes or Josh Allen at 2, how about we acknowledge some other folks that play the offensive on the offensive side of the ball, the non-quarterbacks. How about your non-quarterback MVP from the past season?
So basically the Offensive Player of the Year award.
Pretty much.
Which has always been a little bit weird. I will go with Derrick Henry. How could you not look at Derrick Henry when talking about non-quarterbacks? 2,027 rushing yards. That's the 5th most all-time. The 8th 2,000-yard season in NFL history. He's got back-to-back rushing titles. He averaged 127 yards rushing per game money. He had 397 touches as the engine of that great Arthur Smith-led Tennessee Titans offense, and 17 touchdowns. He's a Hall of Fame player, and we've seen it back-to-back rushing titles now.
Hard to push back against that, but I'm going to try, and I think I got it right. I'm going to go Travis Kelce, because he wasn't just the best tight end in football this past season, but you can make a darn compelling case. He was the best pass catcher on the field all season. 2nd in yards, 5th in TDs and receptions, a complete mismatch for which no team had an answer. Maybe it's a little bit of a career award, 5 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. No tight end's ever done that. He broke the single-season yardage record, which he had held 2 seasons ago before Kittle took it from him last year. Now he took it back. And then when you include the playoffs, and maybe I'm doing that, back-to-back 100-yard games, pretty darn impressive. Can't do that. Pretty darn impressive for Kelce.
The best compliment I can hand out to Travis Kelce is he's always open.
Always. Short, quick, downfield, contested catches. The guy does it all. Let's go Defensive Player of the Year, and here are our end of the look. No different, right? I guess it is different because you got a number one that makes no sense. Defend yourself, Dan. TJ Watt over Aaron Donald.
I don't know how it is with you because the Chargers pay you to be their voice, so you have to be in cahoots with the other LA team. I don't know. But the TJ Watt, to me, is the guy that deserves love here. He should have won the Defensive Player of the Year last year. So it's like a Marty Scorsese departed moment maybe for me here. But he led the league in sacks, tackles for loss, quarterback hits. He is as disruptive as it gets as a pass rusher, and he's a playmaker, forcing fumbles, changing games. He's not as good as peak J.J. Watt, but that's unfair to even say that because he is a Hall of Fame level talent in his own right. He deserves the hardware.
Well, I disagree. 13 and a half sacks is pretty darn close to 15, especially when we consider that it's coming from the interior of the defensive line. But most importantly, he led the number 1 overall defense, did Aaron Donald. He led the number 1 passing defense. He led the number 1 scoring defense. And on top of all that, it led to career years from teammates. Leonard Floyd, career year. John Johnson, Troy Hill, Darius Williams, all career years. Aaron Donald is not just wrecking shop. He's making teammates money. And finally, I've got a nice little exercise for you, Dan. What did it look like in the playoff game when the Rams didn't have Aaron Donald against Aaron Rodgers? The Green Bay Packers only put up historic numbers, 475 total yards, 175 on the ground when the guy couldn't play because his ribs were busted up. It shows you what a unit would look like without him.
I mean, he's won multiple of these awards. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I got much love for Aaron Donald. I just want to give a little shine to somebody else. This 1 year.
Totally
just
fine.
This 1 year.
But not this year. All right, let's go Rookie of the Year. And your Rookie of the Year selection is, oh, look at that. We actually have differing number 3s. Jonathan Taylor, after helping carry the Colts into the postseason, I put him at 3. You had Joe Burrow, who went down to injury, was having an awesome season prior to that. How dare you put the other Justin at number 1? Defend yourself, Dan. How dare you?
Mostly to tweak the voice of the Chargers.
Thanks.
But I will also say that Justin Jefferson, number 22 overall pick, enters the season minimized in the Vikings game plan. Once he finally gets a chance around week 3 or so, he's the best player on the field many weeks. And, he set the receiving yards mark in his rookie season. Anquan Bolden had that record for 16 years. 88 catches, set the new Vikings team record for rookies, putting him ahead of Randy Moss. 7 100-yard games. He is the central piece of the Vikings offense going forward. He's not Randy Moss as a rookie. Nobody was. Moss was all-time great. Right. But Justin Jefferson entered the league as a superstar, and that's why he gets the edge.
And I guess what I would say is Herbert was better than any rookie has ever performed in his rookie campaign. In his first season, technically Patrick Mahomes was a rookie in his second year because he didn't play enough, but this was his initial campaign. And I'm only showing you highlights against the Super Bowl participants. What did he do in his first ever start? Rushed for a touchdown, threw for a touchdown, took his team to an overtime engagement with the Chiefs, who are now representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. What did he do against Tom Brady? How about trading punches and throwing dimes like that when he's taking a shot to the chest to Tyron Johnson? Doing it again. By the way, I didn't say Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. I said Tyron Johnson. Here, how about Donald Parham of the XFL catching a touchdown? And look at this one. Shot to the chest when he was trailing after being up 17. He takes the lead in the fourth quarter on Tom Brady and the Bucs in Tampa with that dime to Jalen Guyton. Those are the dudes that he was dishing out. It is one of the great rookie campaigns that I think we'll ever see in the history of this sport.
Ultimately, I'm just showing how magnanimous the old Zeuser is, because I know what you're saying is correct, but I wanted to give you the platform because you're close ties to the player. That's who I am.
Thank you. Well, that's very kind of you. And be sure to check out the NFL Honors Awards to find out, and I have to hold this up because I have such a tiny head. Saturday, February 6th, it will be on CBS at 9 p.m. Look at this thing. I can probably spin it. Yeah.
Is that the doorbell? I think your paycheck just arrived.
Penultimate episode. I can't let the quaff get too messed up there. All right. When we return, shyness is nice, and shyness can stop you from accomplishing all the football things you want to, unless you overachieve. Cynthia Freeland will join to share some units that balled out beyond what was expected this past season. And we welcome you back to Power Rankings. It is time for Power Moves, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. She's the high priestess of the hyperbola, the premier predictive analyst among a bevy of football brilliance. It is Cynthia Freeland popping on Power Rankings to offer up some overachievers, Cynthia, outfits that outperformed their projected production. But see, first I want to point out that smile. Look at those pearly whites, because when I hold up the state of Michigan, if you got Detroit somewhere around here, Cynthia, you are what? From like right around this area?
Yep, a little like in the middle. The middle. Oh,
so
wait, here. Great.
You see those teeth, Dan? You see those teeth? Give us that big smile, Cynthia. You know what those teeth will be good for? Biting off kneecaps and taking out hunks of football players as they get out.
I've learned so much about the Midwest from being on this show. It's really been what a moment.
Her beloved Detroit Lions from her childhood, looking for strong teeth.
She looks terrified
out of opponents.
I'm looking for a new team.
Yeah,
I can't handle the kneecap biting. It's just not a thing for me.
Exactly right. All right, so let's get to it, Cynthia. Back to the math and the highbrow conversation as part of Power Rankings. You are talking about overachievers, groups that outperformed what your projections suggested might be in their future.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the Cleveland Browns O-line. We knew they'd be good. In fact, the model predicted them to be the 11th best O-line in the NFL. They ended up at number 1. So when I look to see kind of what happened through the season, they got better. The scheme works better. They were great at stopping, blocking for their running backs like you're seeing here. And they're also good at stopping pressure. So I'm really impressed, and even more impressed than I thought I would be. And I thought they'd be 11, and they were number 1.
And you see it with guys like Baker Mayfield. I don't think Baker is a star necessarily, but you put a player like Baker behind an elite offensive line and great running game. How many games did Cleveland close out this year in the fourth quarter by depending on the Hogs and getting behind the running game legit?
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a reason why when you see in free agency routinely the contracts that are most often scrutinized are O-line contracts, because teams are willing to throw an exorbitant amount of money just to try to get to league average. And I think that's what you're pointing to, Cynthia, is when you can get above league average, you can really do wonders in this league, because it is such a hard position group to get right, especially defensive line seemingly always has an edge against them. All right, what's next? What do we got?
So one of the Super Bowl teams, I did not expect their running backs as a unit to be very good. However, maybe in part because they did have a really good O-line. But if you look to see how Tampa Bay does in their run game, they've actually exceeded expectations by quite a bit. They were in my bottom 10 in terms of projected before the season, and they actually ended up right about 12-13, which is an interesting, kind of doubling of what the expectation was, which is just enough to really make sure that passing game and Tom Brady's ability to connect on the deep pass, namely, was the running back able to help block in blocking schemes when it's not really padding their own stat sheet, but rather being good teammates in order to create a bigger uptick for everyone else. So the run game for Tampa Bay has actually exceeded expectations by almost double what they were expecting.
And I know Ronald Jones, he delivered splash plays during the season, but it just was kind of surreal to me to be watching a conference championship game in 2021 and Leonard Fournette is making monster plays. It seemed like his career was all but over, but good for him and good for the Bucs for spotting that he had something still in the tank.
Yeah, and I would just add, going back to your first point, I would assume if you ran the numbers, the Bucs O-line probably outperformed. I mean, unless you really had Tristan Wirfs projected to be one of the best right tackles in his rookie season, that obviously contributes a lot to what Leonard Fournette was able to do in Tampa that maybe we didn't see in Jacksonville. We got one more group.
Well, this one's really strategic, and that is the Chiefs secondary. Because if you think about it, when you have Patrick Mahomes who can score really quickly, the Chiefs secondary becomes even more important and an even bigger point of emphasis, because strategically teams are going to be passing against the Chiefs quite a bit. And if you look at this secondary, especially considering the front of the defense isn't a high pressure front, they don't rank in the top 10 in terms of generating pressure. So the secondary has been really important, not just for what a normal secondary needs, but especially given what this offense does, the complementary aspects of football. It's not just Honey Badger. It's the net effect of all of them coming together to be able to stop the pass. That's been a really key factor. You saw it last week. Josh Allen couldn't complete anything deep. And by the way, all of those guys, we didn't even know they were going to play until very soon before the game started. So that's even not being 100%. So they've definitely exceeded what the expectations were going into the season.
It was an awesome performance against the Bills because that's how Buffalo was going to beat Kansas City, was to shred them beat with John Brown and Stephon Diggs. Their inability to do that really changed that game.
Yeah, and I would also add, we always talk about, and we've done it quite a bit, risk it, biscuit, that whole thing. That goes for defense as well. They pressured Josh Allen. They did not want to give him time to use that giant cannon he's got, and that certainly benefited the secondary, particularly in that game. You can get all of her findings, and through the course of the next week plus, heading into Super Bowl, you'll want to make a regular appearance. There you go. Go ahead, show them that. That's exactly. My teeth aren't nearly strong enough to take a hunk of flesh out of kneecaps. When we return, the singular reason for your sitting through these 60 minutes, the old Zeusers Super Bowl pick, and maybe I'll offer up a selection as well. 55's winner and final scores included next.
Pinch yourselves, people. It's happening.
Do you want to add excitement to this year's Super Bowl? Play the new NFL Pick'em Party presented by Caesars Rewards to win exclusive prizes, including an epic 2022 NFL Draft package for you and friends at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. Download the NFL mobile app or visit NFL.com/pickparty to learn more. We've arrived at the moment, Dan. Hopefully you're feeling the pressure. Your heart is pounding. Your brow has a few beads of sweat because it is time for Super Bowl picks. Dan, select your winner and a final score, please.
I don't struggle with this one because the Chiefs, we all suspected it, that they were kind of doing the rope-a-dope game heading into the playoffs, and then they showed us that's exactly what they do. They turn it on. They wipe the Bills out. Awesome Bills team. It wasn't even competitive. They will beat the Bucs 38-28. Tampa Bay will keep it competitive, but they won't have the same success they had against Green Bay.
All right, I will go the opposite sideline because, of course, I will. Listen, you want to overcome a deficit to Jimmy Garoppolo. You want to overcome a deficit to Ryan Tannehill, to Deshaun Watson, to Josh Allen. That's fine. Do it. But you're not overcoming that deficit to Tom Brady. Not the greatest of all time. Not after he already flew into Arrowhead 2 seasons ago and put it to you in overtime. He will do it again. There will be no field goals. It will be 35-28. More like 7. Oh, actually, that would be a field goal, wouldn't it? Whatever. I'm going 35-28 Bucks. No biscuits, riskets, all of those things included. It's going to be an awesome, offensive, explosive Super Bowl.
What soggy foundation to say, Josh Allen, beating him's one thing. Josh Allen, he was like an MVP this year.
Listen, I got the Bucs. He's got the Chiefs. Tuesday, February 9, 3 p.m. Eastern, we'll be back. Recap Super Bowl 55. Get our first look at 2021 offseason power rankings. I can do it too. 2 weeks, Set your calendars. We'll see you then.